Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're going to have a great time today. I can tell you that. We're starting off what seems to be a new year. And for those of you who practice A Course in Miracles, you all know what lesson number one is. Nothing I see means anything. You also know that Jesus says that the learning of the workbook is not cumulative. He basically says, if you can just get one lesson, you got them all. If you can get one lesson completely, you've just graduated from the course and found peace of mind, the happy dream. You've accepted the atonement. So really, even though we're dealing with lesson number one, nothing I see means anything. This is an opportunity today to really go for the direct shot to God. And some of you know that's in A Course in Miracles. So the question is asked of Jesus, can God be reached directly? And his answer is yes. So when Jesus says yes to God can be reached directly, that means you know what we're in for. We're going for it. We're not going for a substitute. We're not going for a delay. We're not going for a bypass. We're not going for, as the Beatles said, the long and winding road. We like that word direct. So we're going for a direct experience. And wow, we have some great themes today to approach this direct experience. We also have an amazing movie. It's a mystery movie, but I'll tell you more very quickly here. You're in for a treat. We don't often do mystery movies, but this is a good time to do it, the first day of the year. And also, a bit of context, even though this is the first day of the year and there's all these well wishes for Happy New Year and so on and so forth, these are part of the rituals on planet Earth. We like to wish everyone Happy New Year. We really are saying, I love you. But we do it in time terms, like Happy New Year. We wish for you a very happy New Year, a happy 2022. But what Jesus tells us in his course is that time actually goes backwards. So you can imagine we've been celebrating this ritual for many centuries, and Jesus and the angels are laughing because time goes backwards, he says. It doesn't go the way we believe it goes. We're wishing everybody well for the future year, and he's like, well, actually, that's why I have you practicing the lessons, because time goes backwards, not forwards. That's a pretty strong, that kind of undercuts the beliefs of everything we believe in this world. But Jesus tells us time goes backwards to an instant that's so ancient that it's beyond the hope of remembering. So what Jesus is telling us, that whether you want to call it the Big Bang or whatever, you'll never remember the Big Bang because it's too far back. It's out of range. It's so ancient that it's beyond the hope, he says, of remembering. However, he does tell us that before this time of terror, before the belief in separation, before the Big Bang, there is an I am presence, there is a light, there is a spirit, there is God, prior to the instant of seeming separation. And he says, oh yeah, you will remember that. In fact, that's the most natural thing. To remember God is the most natural thing in the world, he says. So anytime you feel like you blew it, or your life's been a waste, or you made too many mistakes, just remember Jesus's happy, smiling face telling you that the only natural thing in the world is to remember God. And that in the end, it's inevitable, you can't mess it up, and you can't blow it, because it's God's will to be known and to be remembered. Happiness, perfect love. So time goes backwards, and that's good for us to keep in mind, even though we're accustomed to thinking of the first day of the new year as a new beginning. Jesus has a different idea for us for a new beginning. He wants us to have an experience of love and light that truly opens us up in a new way, that lifts us beyond the dream. He wants us to open up to the light that is beyond the dream. So here's the themes that you all voted for this week. And I'll put them in order of which themes got the most votes. The first theme we're going to use the movie for today is: the only change I can bring is the change of my own mind. So he's telling us a change of mind is all that is asked by the Holy Spirit. That's all Jesus is asking for. He's just asking for us to change our mind. And what he means by that is, he said, change the purpose by which you interact with the world. There is a purpose in your mind called forgiveness, and that's the one you want to embrace. And then there's another purpose called ego or fear or hatred, anger. You know, this purpose is of division. It's of separation. It's a faulty formulation of reality. It's an imposter self that really has no reality or existence. So he's asking us to see that the only change I can bring is the change of my own mind. And he's not really talking about a personal mind. When I say own mind, we're talking about the mind. We're not talking about a personality's mind, because persons don't really have minds of their own. Only the ego assigns the property of the body, which is separation, to the mind, and therefore you have a phrase as if my own mind, my own beliefs, my own perspective, my own version of the world. Jesus is saying, no, you don't have a private mind with private thoughts. So when we're saying change of my own mind, we're meaning change of the mind that believes in the world, that believes in separation. That's the mind that needs to change. Okay, second one is not being delayed or distracted by the ego. Well, the ego is quite ingenious at inventing distractions. Some of you may have noticed, there's pride, there's fame, there's personal power, there's money, there's prestige, there's being liked, there's knowing the right people. There's a lot of distractions that are part of the sleeping mind to keep you from being still and remembering God. And so I've sometimes referred to this world of linear time as Distractionville. Welcome to Distractionville. This is day one of undoing the belief in Distractionville. This is day one of learning to hear only the Holy Spirit and nothing else. This is day one of forgetting the linear world and remembering the eternal God who created Christ and created us perfect. Okay, third one, make this year different by making it all the same. Okay, sometimes people say, what? What is he talking about now? He's telling me my 2022 is supposed to be boring, monotonous, repetitious. No. That's not what Jesus means. Not at all. Nada. Make this year different by making it all the same. He's saying hold the same purpose in your mind for everything this year, regardless of the circumstances, regardless of the situation. regardless of the people, whether they come or they go, whether they stay or they go, regardless of what your bank account statement says, regardless of the weather, regardless of the climate, regardless of the politics, regardless of absolutely everything. He's saying, make this year different by making it all the same. He's really saying, use forgiveness to see the sameness of all your brothers and sisters, that we all really share the same spirit and the same mind, even though the ego's tried to trick us into believing we're separate and we're different. There's a saying in the world that says, variety is the spice of life. That doesn't really go with make this year different by making it all the same. Yeah, let's hear a cheer for sameness. Let's hear a cheer for equality. Let's hear a cheer for oneness. Let's hear a cheer for love, which knows no differences. Agape love, universal love. Let's hear a cheer for that. That's the kind of spice I need in my life. I need some sameness. I'm happy to welcome sameness, because I can tell you, people have told me for the last 35 years, I don't know, David, that sounds kind of boring. And I'd say, listen, I can tell you right now, this is not boring. This is the farthest thing from boring. This is joy. This is full-on joy. And this is not boring at all, because it doesn't have any repetitive nature to it. It's actually so still and content in the moment that you see everything is brand new. Every movie that I watch, I really am in joy, because I'm going through an experience of joy of the present moment while I'm watching the movie. So that's why they're all joyful movies. It's not because the movie itself is an external to my mind and the movie is a joyful movie. It's that the one who's watching is joyful. That's it. We have to stay with the one who's watching, and that is the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit looks not to effects. He's simply watching the world, and he's the state of true love, true beingness. Okay, next one. No private thoughts and no people pleasing. Well, we always talk about that, but why is it so important to have no private thoughts and no people pleasing? Well, the alternative is not so good. Agendas are not good. Judgments, not helpful. Opinions, not helpful. Pursuits and goals for the future, not helpful in present peace. So basically, if you don't live a life of transparency, where you say what you mean and mean what you say, where you wear your emotions on your sleeve, where you are really genuine, if you don't live that kind of life, then it's going to be very difficult, because the other option is a realm of secrets. And secrets are never helpful. There's nothing about God that wants us to have secrets. Some of you know I talk about revelation, that God only wants to be completely revealed and known as pure love. And God hides nothing. So there's nothing hidden to God. But to the ego, everything is hidden. And it wants to keep everything hidden. It wants to keep everything hidden because the light of truth would shine away the ego and all of its secrets. And then the last one for today is holding the purpose of forgiveness out front. It's really setting the goal, and it's saying, I want to have peace as my goal, and I'm going to hold it out front as a torch, as I want truth as my goal. I want happiness as my goal. I want love as my goal, and oneness. And that means putting it ahead of everything else, putting it in the forefront. Now, the movie that Jesus has selected for us for this new year is so much fun. I just laughed. I thought that's a perfect way for a New Year's Day movie, is a New Year's Day movie that helps us face the belief in death. That's good. That's the central illusion, is the belief in death. So if we face death and we see its nothingness and its impossibility, well, that's it. Game over for the ego. When we think of death, I guess facing death, most people think of death, though, as organic death, as death of a body. And Jesus is telling us in the Course, no, it's all the mind. And death is simply a belief in something other than what is real and true. And so death is not in form. You can believe it's there, but you're believing it's where it's not. And therefore, you have difficulty transcending it or forgiving it. If you believe it's external to you, if you believe it's in the world, then you're going to have a tough time forgiving it, because there's really nothing out there. It's just a projection of the belief in death. So Jesus is giving us a movie where we're going to face the belief in death. And if that can be seen for what it is, the nothingness that it is, that there is nothing that God creates that involves death whatsoever, then once we come to this awareness, then we are free of the belief. Now, in order to do this, the movie will actually bring about what the world would call a crisis. And actually, that's what we seem to face when we believe in planet Earth and time and space. We seem to face a series of crises. And the ego puts these crises in a hierarchy. It's a hierarchy of crisis. So if you're hungry, that could be a crisis of a certain level to the ego. If you're sick, that could be a higher crisis to the ego. If you're deathly sick, that is a higher crisis to the ego. And if you're dying, that's the worst crisis to the ego. Actually, to Jesus, they're all the same. Anything that is not love is unreal. And so there can't be a hierarchy of unreal. It's just unreal. Unreal is unreal. So the movie we're going to look at it's actually a comedy. And when you have a movie that looks at the concept and the belief in death and is a comedy, that's the best. Because remember, the whole world of time and space came about from the mind forgetting to laugh at the ego. Into eternity, where all is one, there crept a tiny, mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. Now, what is the most extreme kind of crisis that we could use in a movie to help us see the impossibility of the ego? It has to be about the end of the world. I see Ian, Helena. We were down in Australia, I think, and sitting in a movie theater, I believe, and it was we were going to see the movie Knowing, and that was a Nicolas Cage end of the world movie. I could feel a swirl of joy before the curtains, the old-fashioned curtains opened, and before the movie came on. It was Jesus kind of saying, "Hold on to your hat now. We're going to have some fun." And we were sitting there ready to watch an end of the world movie, and Jesus was all swirly and tickly in joy, like, "Come take a ride with me. This is no horror movie. This is a movie of reaching joy." So actually, when I thought about the movie, when the movie came to me, also some beautiful passages came, and I thought, well, this is great. We're going to show an end of the world movie on the first day of the year. That's fantastic, Jesus. And right away, I thought of the manual for teachers, how how will the world end? When I first picked up the course in 1986, I had questions, and I think that's kind of a question that a lot of us, maybe we used to think about some, but how will the world end? I remember popping open the manual for teachers, and there it was, how will the world end? And Jesus is so nonchalant, and he's so light and humorous. That has to be, to human beings, one of the most profound and intense questions that is ever asked. How will the world end? And the Bible attempts to answer it, and all religions attempt to answer it. Some philosophies make an attempt to answer it. And Jesus answers the question of how will the world end with another question. You got to love it. You know he's having some fun when he answers a question like that with another question. And here's the question he asked. When you ask Jesus, how will the world end? He says, can what has no beginning really end? He's got a smile on his face. He's got something to share, because he's not even interested in beliefs around crucifixion. He says the crucifixion was the last useless journey. So he's not really scared by this death belief at all, because he knows it's not real. He does tell us the world will end in an illusion as it began, yet will its ending be an illusion of mercy, the illusion of forgiveness, complete, excluding no one, limitless in gentleness, and it will cover it. It will cover the world. So when he talks about mercy, love, forgiveness, limitless gentleness, he's saying that there's a state of mind that will be the end of the world as it seemed to be. He also goes on to say the world will end in joy because it is a place of sorrow. When joy has come, the purpose of the world is gone. The world will end in peace because it is a place of war. When peace has come, what is the purpose of the world? And the world will end in laughter because it is a place of tears. Where there is laughter, who can longer weep? So that's the kind of experience that I think we're in for today. If you can watch this movie and actually feel in your heart the comedy of this play, if you can feel the humor and the lightness, then that is a giant leap toward heaven in awareness, because laughter is how we enter into heaven. We do not enter into it through Armageddon. We do not enter into heaven through destruction. No, nada to the destruction. We don't enter into heaven through fear. That was something misinterpreted by some very sincere Christians, where they said, fear God and keep his commandments. They just meant hold God in awe. God is truly awesome. There's an appropriate one for awesome. God is awesome, and we should hold God in awe, but not fear as the world sees fear. We don't need to be trembling in the presence of the creator of love. That makes no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to set the movie up in a moment here, but I thought I would really go for the simplicity today, because I was thinking that's really what I think everybody's just praying for is just simplicity. That's all that we really want, is the simple truth. We want simplicity. We're not interested in complexity. We want the obvious. We're not interested in the hidden. We want what is apparent now, not what is hypothetical. And so I was praying with Jesus, and I was saying, is there any kind of a passage in the Course that we can use as kind of like a springboard for all of these themes that we're going to go for today? And he did guide me to a passage. He took me to chapter 12, and a beautiful little paragraph in chapter 12, which I find is like it's the most delicious teaching of simplicity that you'll ever hear with these ears. And this is what he says. He's going to start off with the word salvation. That's nice when he starts the sentence off with salvation. And a lot of us have been raised with Christianity, and we have different meanings of salvation. Some of them, maybe they weren't the most positive ones. When we grew up, we were not exactly thrilled. Oh, tell me more about salvation during the dinner time discussion. No, it wasn't exactly something we were excited about. But it is an important thing, because what is being saved or what is being salvaged is our peace of mind. That's important. If saved means being peaceful, I'm ready to be saved. If saved is peaceful, I'm all in for saved. Not that it's a personal thing, but it's very important. So here's what Jesus says. Salvation is for the mind, and it is attained through peace. Wow, that's a good start. Salvation is for the mind, and it is attained through peace. This is the only thing that can be saved, and the only way to save it. Ooh, that's getting really good. So salvation for the mind is the only thing that can be saved, the mind, and the only way to save it is through the attainment of peace. Any response other than love arises from a confusion about the what and the how of salvation. And this is the only answer. I like it when he's so uncompromising. This is the only answer. Okay, then the what must be salvation and the how must be peace. And isn't it important for human beings to be very, very clear about the what and the how? Because if you open your eyes in the morning and your mind is filled with all kinds of what ideas, what am I going to wear? What am I going to eat? Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? What? Jesus is saying, no, the what is salvation. That's the purpose of your day, is salvation. And you have no other. So salvation's everything, and everything else is nothing. So the what is salvation. That means when somebody greets you and they greet you by your name and they go, hey, what's up? What's up? Salvation is up. That's what's up, salvation. Or as they used to say, hey bro, what up is salvation. What up is salvation. Okay, that's it. Another way people say it is, what's happening? What's happening? Salvation. That's it. That's the answer. What's going on? Salvation. What are you going to do today? Salvation. Do you have any plans for the future? Salvation. Salvation. Because salvation is the what. This is no small thing when Jesus tells you the what. And then he goes beyond telling you the what. He tells you the how. He tells you the what, and he tells you the how. The what is salvation, and the how is peace. The what is the goal, and the how is the means. The what is right now, and the how is right now too. It's it's real. This is getting really simple. You mean to tell me all the education I had and all of my parents taught me and all of my government taught me, all that my culture taught me was mistaken, because the what is saving my sleeping mind? Yeah, that's right. And how? Through peace. What's up? What up, man? What up? Yeah, dreaming up. Dreaming's the problem. And what? Salvation is the solution. So that's why salvation is the what? Because what? Dreaming is not natural. Dreaming is not natural. Maybe to human beings it seems natural, but God didn't create a dreamer. God doesn't create dreaming. Sometimes people say, maybe God is asleep at the wheel with all the havoc and the terror and the strange, wacky world we have going on. No, the dreaming of the world is the problem. The what, therefore, is the waking up from the dream, which is salvation. That's how the mind is saved. It's a wake-up call. The what is a wake-up call, and the how is peace. Whoa, that second one is important too, because the how is not money. The how is not education. The how is not upward mobility. The how is not having a great house or a great car or a great family or a great career. Oh, the how is peace. Peace of mind is the how. So when he says he's going to tell us the what and the how, and it's very important, because he says anytime there's confusion, you've simply forgotten the what and the how. So here we are on the first day of the year. It's like all Jesus is saying is just remember what up and how. What up? Salvation. How? Peace of mind. That's it. End of story. There's nothing more important. Then he says, never lose sight of this and never allow yourself to believe, even for an instant, that there is another answer. He's giving us the most direct shot into the kingdom of heaven. And he's saying, don't let yourself believe, even for an instant, that there's another answer. Because the ego can generate a lot of questions, like, what about my bank account? What about my personal health and my body symptoms and aches and pains? What about the politics of this world? What about my country? What about my grass in my yard is too long? Oh my God! What about the cat? You didn't feed the cat. You know, whenever we're tempted to believe that there's something that needs to be solved in the world, we're forgetting that salvation in the mind is what is calling for salvation. It's the mind itself that's asleep and dreaming that's in need of salvation. So we're not talking about a personal salvation. It's not about going out and trying to be an evangelist and trying to save people. It's not even about saving the whales. It's not even about saving the ozone layer. It's not about saving Mother Nature. If you really look at what Jesus is saying, he's saying that most of what is believed in to be believed in need of saving is not saving at all, because the mind is the only thing that needs to be saved. What about my savings account, my bank account? No, Jesus says you don't need to save money. Well, what about the future? Shouldn't I save for a rainy day, save for the future? No, it's just the mind. The mind needs salvation right now. But don't you think I should live in harmony with all the plants and animals in the world? What about ecological harmony? What about harmony with the earth? Can't I be in harmony with Mother Nature and Mother Earth? And Jesus says, yes, if you accept salvation in your mind, you are in harmony with everything. You're in harmony with, what do you call it? Mother Earth, Father Time. You're in harmony with everything when you're in harmony with yourself. When your mind rests in peace, you are suddenly in harmony with everything and everyone. You don't have to take a stand for something or against something in the world, because that's duality. Your peace is the answer. You are the goal the world is searching for, meaning your Christ self is the goal that the world is searching for. And it is searching for no other goal, because only other goals were made by the ego, and that was to distract you from the one goal of salvation of the mind. So when I was shown this movie that I'm going to show today, I just was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. I mean, I had such a good laugh at this. And Jesus pulled in he's pulled in big name actors and actresses for this. He's got a great cast to act out the skit of the end of the world. He's brought in so much humor and so much joy and so much laughter, and that is for the mind's benefit. Now, also, when I saw this movie, I closed my eyes, and when I finally got to the end of the movie, I just had the biggest smile on my face. And then Jesus said to me, George Carlin. And I'm like, George Carlin? Well, what's George Carlin got to do with it? He said, a lot. He said, I want you to show a little clip I want you to show a little YouTube clip as the warm-up act for the movie. You know, sometimes we used to go to concerts and there was a warm-up band, and then the warm-up band would play, and then they'd bring on the main event or the main attraction. So we've got a warm-up event today. That's right. George Carlin is the warm-up event. And I had to laugh because I was sitting there with a smile on my face, and I got George Carlin. And then George Carlin, what? I mean, this is a comedian of many years and much humor. And Jesus said, George Carlin, saving the planet. So immediately after I watched the movie I'm going to show you today, I had to tune into George Carlin saving the planet. And I can see why Jesus wants this as the warm-up act today. He wants us so loose for this movie. He wants us so receptive for what is in our hearts that he's actually going to let George Carlin be the comedic warm-up for the movie. So I'm just going to say that for some of you who are watching on streaming on live on YouTube or Facebook, you're going to have to look that up yourself and watch the George Carlin Saving the Planet. It's an animation too, so you're going to enjoy some great animation as well as great humor from George Carlin. Now the actual movie that will come after that, which we're all here gathered around the world to watch together, the movie is called Don't Look Up. And the movie is Don't Look Up. And so that's our mystery movie for today. And some of you have been really with me here over the Christmas season. I showed a movie a week before Christmas. I showed a movie about the loop of time and escaping the loop of time and seeing everybody with love and gratitude and appreciation. And that movie was called The 12 Dates of Christmas. And in that movie, the main characters were named Kate, and her ex was But on Christmas Eve, I showed another movie, which is called Family Man. And that was a movie that was so beautiful. And the main characters, again, were Kate and Jack. And now, on the third consecutive Saturday, we're showing a movie called Don't Look Up. And Kate, I have to say, Kate is our name. This is the third consecutive week that Jesus has shown a Kate movie. And Kate has been the main character of Getting Out of the Loop of Time. Kate was the girlfriend who helped Jack, Nicolas Cage, get out of time in my Christmas movie. And now on New Year's, Kate again, except this time it's Kate and Randall are our main two. Kate, played by Jennifer Lawrence, and Randall, it's just, this is an amazing movie. Randall plays her professor. Leonardo DiCaprio is Randall, and he plays Professor Mindy, and Kate is a Michigan State University graduate student working on her doctorate. And she's going to discover something during her graduate work, which will be the main theme of the movie. Also, I have to say, this is a cast of, there are so many Oscar nominations and Oscar winners in this movie. This is a cast. Jesus is pulling out all the stops. He's pulling out Kate Blanchett, and he's pulling out Meryl Streep. He's pulling out Jonas Hill. He's loaded this thing up with the best actors he could find to help us escape our belief in death. You know, he wants us to not believe in death, so he's bringing out all the big names to do it. So we have Kate and Randall, the graduate assistant working on her doctorate. That's Kate, and Randall is Professor Mindy. They're going to be our main characters in the movie. Then we have Janie. Our president's name is Janie, and her chief of staff is her son, Jason. You got to love that. What? A president with family ties right there? Ooh, looks interesting. I think Jesus is going to poke fun at whatever's going on planet Earth. And then we have a talk show called RIP, Let It Rip. And the reason I like this talk show is RIP. Most of you know that's an acronym for Rest in Peace. That's usually what they put on people's tombstones in the cemetery. And yet this is a talk show called RIP. So we have talk show hosts Bree and Jack. And Bree is, it's just so good. They're just really good. We also have a billionaire in here played. This billionaire is also a donor to the president, to Janie, and he's called Sir Peter Isherwell, and his big company is called Besh. So on Christmas, the name of the angel that helped Nicolas Cage was Cash. This week, it's Besh. Besh is the name of the big company of the tech billionaire. He's kind of like Elon Musk and all of the great inventors and wealthy men and women of the world rolled into one character. He's into technology, and his company is called Besh. Anyway, that is a little taste of what we're in for today. It's going to be a fairly long movie with lots of commentary. It's going to have about 8 minutes of George Carlin coming to warm you up and warm your heart up at the beginning. And then, so I think we're in for a pretty long ride. For some of you in Europe, just get the candles lit and get ready to ride this one out with Jesus, because we've got a great one. So that's our opening setup here. We will move into the George Carlin setup first, and then we'll move directly into Don't Look Up, the movie. It was just released recently, so it's a very new release. And I will join you during the movie for commentary. And this movie is kind of a parody poking fun at the ego's world. It pokes fun at politics. It pokes fun at wealth. It pokes fun at technology and worldly intelligence. It pokes fun at special relationships. It comes at that one from many different angles. And I have a feeling we may see some Academy Awards coming for this one because it is very unusual, but we have a very important topic. When we're facing the belief in death, we're facing something that's a root. It's a root belief. It's the belief that made all of time and space. So we need to go for the root. And we're doing that today. So enjoy the movie and enjoy George. Thank you, George. Thank you for lighting it up. I have to say, at the end of this movie, I just had the biggest smile on my face, and nothing could make me smile even brighter than to watch a George Carlin animation, which is perfect for lesson number 1. Nothing I see means anything. If you're struggling with lesson 1 today, you put your faith here and relax and let George take you by the hand. And George will ease you into nothing I see means anything in the most humorous way possible.
You can find the link to the George Carlin, The Planet Isn't Going Anywhere video in the description.
Okay, now this is a teaching we can see in form. She's discovered a comet streaking through the sky, and her professor has checked out the trajectory and calculated the path of it. And when he came to the point of 0, which is 0 distance from planet Earth, he has now taken what his graduate assistant discovered, which is a streaking comet, and he has just done the math on it and realized that it's going to hit the Earth. And this is quite a large comet. It's between 5 and 10 kilometers. It's about the equivalent of the size of Mount Everest, a comet streaking through the sky and coming to planet Earth for a direct hit, about the size of Mount Everest. Now, the interesting thing I want to point out is that once he realizes the math, and once it dawns on him, he immediately shuts down the equation, shuts down the processing, because he cannot psychologically deal with what he's just put on his chalkboard. And how does this relate to us? Well, when the mind believed in the separation, when it believed in the ego, it basically was a time of terror. That's what Jesus calls the unholy instant. He says it's the time of terror. It's like a tiny tick of time, which is terror. It's also described by Jesus as a tiny, mad idea. And so that's what this seems to represent to this astronomer. This is like a horrific discovery that he's just done. In the middle of his calculations, he completely diverts attention away from what he's doing because he cannot handle it. And basically that's what happened when the mind fell asleep and believed in the ego. It pushed it all out of awareness because it was such a horrific emotion, horrific belief. In heaven, everything is one, everything is love. And when the mind moved into a seeming separation state by believing in the ego, it was more than horrifying. It was more than terrifying. It was more than mortifying. And it was pushed out of awareness. And that's where we get the secret dream that Jesus talks about. He says you have two aspects of the self-concept: the dream that you dream in secret and the dream that you gave away. The perceptual world that we perceive with seemingly the 5 senses, even though it's still our dreaming mind, seemingly through the 5 senses, that's the dream that was given away. And the dream that you dream in secret is this horrifying experience that's so dark, Jesus calls it draped with sin, And he says you couldn't stand to look upon it. That's why the face of innocence. That's why the personality self and the surface level of the mind was made up, because it was too horrifying to handle. It was a defense. It was a denial. Repression is a defense. And then the projection of a fake, make-believe, fictitious world is another defense. That's projection. So there you have probably two of the main defenses against the holy instant, against the light: denial, repression, and projection. So we're going to watch this carefully, because Professor Mendy, he's shut down the whole conversation. He's told everybody they can go except for Kate, who's the one who discovered the comment, and he is going to attempt to process these emotions that are starting to come up into his awareness as he's just discovered something using the equations, using the scientific method that his mind cannot handle. And for all of us, this is important to realize why Jesus is using this movie today, is because we are going to attempt to go inward toward and through a place in our mind that we have not entirely been willing to go through. There's lots of parts in the Course where Jesus talks about it. Probably the one that's most descriptive comes in chapter 3, where Jesus says, as you approach the beginning, you feel the fear of the destruction of your thought system upon you, as if it were the fear of death. There is no death, but there is a belief in death. So as you start to go inward, everybody on the spiritual journey is like, I got to go inward. I have to go inward. The kingdom of heaven is within. I have to go inward. Jesus says, as you get close to the light, as you approach the real beginning, which is, of course, the light, which is beyond beginning and endings, but as you even get close to that ego belief, the cornerstone of the ego thought system, that's referred to in the obstacles of peace. It's the fourth obstacle. Jesus says the fear of God's love. As you approach that obstacle, it gets intense, because if you're identified with the ego belief system, it feels like it's imploding. It feels like as you go toward the light, that he says, you fear the destruction of your thought system upon you as if it were the fear of death. It feels like psychologically like you're being killed, when really it's just the darkness that's been hidden is being exposed, you see? So it's not really something to be feared. It just seems fearful to the ego because the ego is afraid of oblivion. It's afraid of not existing. It's afraid of letting go of its comfortable projected world, and then what? That's why it's terrified of God. It will make up a false God, like an angry, punishing God, or it will say there is no God. But it's very, very frightened by the awakening. Jesus goes on to say that wholeness heals because it is of the mind. Remember, that's our lesson here. Salvation is of the mind, and it's attained through peace. Wholeness heals because it is of the mind. All forms of sickness, even unto death, are physical expressions of the fear of awakening. They are attempts to reinforce sleeping out of fear of waking. So, thank you. We got Jennifer Lawrence coming in here. Whoa, Jesus has got it coming in. Some of you saw Passengers, right? She was on a long sleep, and she was not happy when she was awakened before the destination, and all of her darkness came up. Well, now she's playing a grad student who has discovered a gigantic comet that's hurling towards, she's going to find out, Earth. And there's a lot of emotions that will come up. And just like with all spiritual practices, all authentic healing, you have to let the darkness arise. You have to let the darkness come into awareness before you can let it go. So let's see how our Professor Mindy and Kate are going to handle this, because now they're going to have a pretty heart-to-heart conversation about something which is going to center on death and destruction and the washing away, the elimination, the end of everything that they have known as life on earth. And that is really beginning to confront the belief in death. When everything that you believed is based on the body, it's based on linear time, then when you're confronted with something that will bring an end or threaten to bring an end to what you believe, then that's where the emotions that are hidden come into the surface. Yeah, again, I want to just point out that the woman that they called, when she's presented with the straight information of what they're witnessing and what they're experiencing, she comes first with, let's not get dramatic, and then moves into, this is classified information. And I bring this to, this is exactly how the ego operates with everything. First of all, it says to your mind, okay, separation, is now your reality. Let's not get dramatic. Let's use a lot of layers of defense mechanisms. We can ride this out. Okay, you blew it. The ego says you blew it. You separated from God. Let's and then some defense mechanisms. Here, a good repression. Let's first push it out of awareness, so it's not in your awareness. You can't handle it anyway. So I'm going to help you out. I'll push it out of awareness, and then the ego says, and I can distract you too. We'll use some anesthesia here. Let's put you to sleep for millennium. I said, but how about a time-space world? I can make a lot of distractions that you can get preoccupied with, so you won't have to face this belief that now, and this horrific experience. So that is, in the movie, the way that it's being handled, and the way in the mind that the ego tried to handle the separation. Let's not get dramatic, and it's classified information. How classified is it? Well, even these days, we're in the year 2022, and the teachings of Jesus are just beginning to come to light in people's awarenesses. They're starting to, the metaphysics are so radical that the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles don't ever come into political discussion. It's not often the discussion of talk shows. I remember we have a beloved sister on earth called Oprah Winfrey, and she decided to start bringing Marianne Williamson onto her show. And at one point, she bought Marianne's book and read it, Return to Love, which had some of the teachings and metaphysics of A Course in Miracles. And then when Oprah went on and did a show with Marianne, she bought a copy of Return to Love for everyone in the studio audience. And she looked right into the camera with the book and said, "You've got to buy this book." And probably in the history of the earth, that was probably the biggest injection of Jesus Christ metaphysics on planet Earth through Oprah Winfrey and Marianne Williamson. And yet, I remember many years later, I went and I typed in Marianne Williamson, Oprah Winfrey, and I started seeing everywhere I looked on YouTube, it was saying Oprah Winfrey, the Antichrist. That's the kind of label, not just one video. This was like many videos, Oprah Winfrey, the Antichrist, because she allowed this this little stream of light to come through on her program and bought this book, Return to Love, and shared that book. I think it didn't help too when she had Eckhart Tolle on her satellite radio program. I looked on there, and then it spread all over the place. She was now officially titled the Antichrist for Return to Love, and then Eckhart Tolle on top. Oh my! So it just shows how when we're looking at the teachings that we're being shown, we're seeing things in form that are just symbols that are helping us get in touch with what's much deeper in our mind, that has been buried for many, many, many centuries. It's been buried for millennium, and now it's coming to the surface. And that's what I want to point out with these characters, because they can see the same thing enacted out. As soon as they have something that is seen to be very dark or destructive, which is a comet hitting the planet Earth, immediately you can start to see the let's not get dramatic, changing the subject. Is anybody else run the numbers on this? And this is confidential. You will see that the ego uses private thoughts and secrets as part of its defense to keep itself protected from being exposed and discovered. That's why we practice no people pleasing and no private thoughts, is because the ego uses them, the belief in private thoughts and private minds and people pleasing, to protect itself from the light of truth. And in this movie, you're going to see this dynamic played out over and over and over with all the characters. So what this scene is really starting to show us is that this projected world is a projection of the ego belief system. And the ego belief system is private thoughts and private minds. So as soon as they seem to discover that this gigantic comet is coming to Earth, immediately Professor Mindy tries to hide it from the other graduate students at Michigan State University. When they go out, they wait a long time. There's a birthday party in there. There's all this controversy happening at the White House, and they can't even get in to talk about it because of this. They go to the hotel. Kate's talking to her boyfriend, Philip, and basically she's still staggered by the emotion of what's happening. And he's talking about what's going on with the White House, the nominee for Supreme Court, the whole thing. He's into writing an article about that. And then when she can't even answer him, Kate can't even answer her boyfriend, Philip, he says, oh yeah, it's about me again and my family. So there's a meet the family agenda. There's a write the story about the scandal that's going on with the Supreme Court nomination. There's a cover up at the Michigan State, not telling the graduate students. And then when they get into the Oval Office to finally meet the president and her son, the chief of staff, and so forth, you can see there's political agendas. There's what's going on to the media, midterms. She said, I won't have enough money to get the Congress to pass legislation on this. So you can see that this is the human condition. It's a projection of private minds and private thoughts. And that's why no two people seem to agree on anything. That's why countries don't agree. That's why families don't agree. That's why churches and spiritual communities don't agree. It's because it's a projection of the belief in private minds and private thoughts. And there is no solution in the projection. Jesus is basically telling us, as I've said many, many times over these last 35 years, it's a perceptual problem. It's a problem of seeing the world in fragmented perception, which is what the ego is. It's almost like symbolically, the ego said, here's a pair of sunglasses, put these on. And then instead of them being for the purpose of forgiveness, the dark glasses just show you a dark, fragmented world where people seem to be different. They seem to be distinct. They have their own private minds, their own private thoughts, their own opinions, and lots of judgments, multiple agendas. How do you find harmony where everything that's projected is part of differences? Well, you have to find it in your mind. You have to find it in healed perception. And that's why Jesus is the way shower, because he simply accepted the correction in the mind and saw a vastly different world. And I mean vastly different. It was so different that he tells us in the Course that he says the body's eyes will continue to report differences, but the healed mind puts them into one category. They are unreal. Imagine that state of mind that can look on the world without taking any of the images seriously. That's because it's a reversal of the ego's projection. You know, ego's projection is really lesson number 2. That's tomorrow's lesson. I have given everything I see all the meaning it has for me. And then Jesus begins a thought reversal by showing that what you think is outside of you, what you think your 5 senses are showing you, is really just your thoughts. That's why the early workbook lessons are making a connection between the thoughts that you think and the images that you think you see. They're not different. The thoughts that you think are the images that you think you see. If you're upset at a person, it's because you're upset at the thought, the egoic thought from the past that you're holding about that person, which has nothing to do with who they really are. Spirit. So you're just seeing a projection of ego thoughts. And this movie shows it so well. You know, here we have what seems to be a crisis event, and now we can see that there are many, many different interpretations of this crisis event. Anything from jokes and dismissal to the president saying, "I heard you discovered a planet." They're saying, "No, it's a comet. It's not a planet." And she says, "Oh, good for you." You know, that's where she's starting from. Good for you. And she's got all of the perceptions of a president with an agenda, dealing with a legislation body and everything, dealing with her staff. So no 2 people see the same world. And that's where the conflict arises. It's not that the 2 people are differing in their perceptions. It's that the ego is projecting the people and projecting the private minds and projecting the private thoughts as if everybody has a mind of their own, as if everybody has thoughts, private thoughts of their own. That's how core this is. So when you start working with A Course in Miracles, here we are, the first day of the year, you have to be so willing to let go of it all. You have to let go of everything that you believe. You have to let go of everything that you think in order to have your mind cleaned and cleared for the light to enter. So we're just going to watch how it plays out, but what we're seeing is a parade of what seems to be separate agendas that involve the media. They involve the politics of the president. They involve the politics of the party other than the president. They involve family connections. Professor Mindy has a wife and sons living at home in Michigan there. We see Kate already. There's conflict coming up with Kate and her boyfriend, Philip. And some of you recognize Philip from the movie Yesterday. That was Jack. oh my gosh, Jesus is still bringing in Kate and Jack. It's always the same every week. There's all these different nuances, but basically it's still starting to realize, oh my gosh, I have a perceptual problem. It's not a relationship problem. It's not a political problem. It's not a survival of the body problem. It's not a survival of Mother Nature problem. It's not a survival of planet Earth problem. We can see in this movie that the underlying premise of the movie is that a huge comet is heading towards the Pacific Ocean in a period of months, and it's coming at a high speed, and the perception is the crisis of Earth not being able to be habitable to species, to humans, to species. And yet, if we bring it back to our opening discussion, remember Jesus was saying, don't put your mind on saving the earth. Don't put your mind on saving your interpersonal relationships. Don't put your mind on saving the environment. Don't put your mind on saving the culture or the society. The mind is in need of salvation, and that salvation is only achieved through peace. It's so simple. It's the mind that is in need of salvation, because the mind that is asleep and dreaming of separation from God, that's the problem. And it's not the projection. It's the belief in the mind's belief in separation is what's generating this fragmented perception, which seems to take on many, many different forms. I think this movie is perfectly designed to poke fun at all of the different forms and hiding places the ego tries to find. It tries to hide in the forms. It tries to hide in the forms as if the problems are in the form, but they're not. So here we go. They're just beginning to move through this healing. Well, we're getting a lot of teaching examples here, and this one in the bed is basically, she says, we don't really know each other. And that is the experience that we deal with on a timeline of planet Earth. Nobody knows anyone. All that's seen as a projection of the meaning that has been given from the past. And so that is the invitation to the holy instant, is to come together and to open up. It's just that we're seeing with Dr. Mindy here and Bree, they're starting to show us how superficial private thoughts are, and we could say typical communications of people talking to one another are basically sharing just aspects of privacy little by little, but just in a way to kind of start to bridge the gap, but it doesn't go anywhere unless you find the purpose, unless you go deep enough into the purpose of the communication and the total transparency, then you can see that the communications are very unsatisfying ultimately, and basically that's why relationships are seen in such a superficial way. I mean, here in this part of the movie, Dr. Mindy, Randall's tried to open up and share just the basic facts of what he's experiencing with the comet. And you can see on the media, on the show that Bree does, the Daily Rip, you can see it in the political circles. It's like everything is a theater or a game in which only certain things can be shared. There's private agendas in terms of how the ego set it up. And so if you just follow the ego's scripts and you follow the ego's interpretations of everything, then you find that it feels like you're not really connecting. And that's the whole purpose that the ego made the world for, the linear world, is to not go inside and connect with the spirit. In fact, there's actually one part in the course, which is at the very beginning of the course. It's miracle principle number 30 of the first miracle principles in chapter 1. And Jesus gives us a little glimpse of what it's going to take to find that connection. Because in the ego's realm of all these different levels of perception and its complexities it's set up, the miracle principle is by recognizing spirit, miracles adjust the levels of perception and show them in proper alignment. This places spirit at the center where it can communicate directly. In other words, Jesus is saying the definition of seeming to come to earth is perceptual distortion. No one actually leaves heaven, but in belief, in awareness, it seems like there's distortions and there's conflicts and there's a split mind. And yet the solution is you have to have the willingness to let spirit be put at the center of these levels of perception to show you the unreality of these different levels of perception. You might say that the Holy Spirit and Jesus are just trying to unify the perception, bring everything together. Kind of like in the setting the goal section of the text where Jesus says, a single clear-cut goal put out in front will unify the situation. And when you do this, you will perceive everything and everyone as helping you achieve your goal. So it just means that this is where the practice or the mind training comes in. It's putting spirit first in everything. It's putting spirit at the center of your perception. It's like every seeming situation that you face during the day, your purpose is to put the spirit out front and say, lead me, guide me, show me this situation in a holistic way. Show me that everyone is playing their part perfectly, and help me, lead me not into temptation, which would be the ego of perceiving separate interest, separate opinions, separate agendas. You know that this is the way that it plays out, whether you're dealing with a family situation or a job career situation, whether you're dealing with an interpersonal relationship situation. Even if you walk out of your house and you get hit by a blast of cold winter icy air and you start to shiver, Jesus is always inside us saying, it's a perceptual problem. It's the fragmenting belief system of the ego that is causing the discomfort, not the icy wind, not what the politicians said on the news, not what your partner failed to do when they said they were going to do it, not what is happening in form. It's the perception of wanting a will apart from God, wanting a life apart from God, wanting a mind apart from God. That's the problem. So this movie is I think it's comically showing us with all these scenarios that the main characters are just given one opportunity after the next to come back to, can I openly talk about what seems to be the presenting problem? And then you can go beyond that to start to realize that the problem isn't what it seemed to be. But if you get caught up into the ego games of just passing around the baton of different perceptions, then you're going to be off into opinions. You're going to be off into conclusions. You'll be off into distortions. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who are you backing? Who are you for? Who are you against? That's the ego's game. It's always just trying to make some form of difference real by letting the mind try to get hooked into some kind of interpretation that's a very, we'll say, very personal interpretation. So you can see in this movie, it's really showing all the temptations that just come one after another, where it's using the context of this comet coming to hit the planet. And then you can see it's exposing everything else, which is all of the seeming ego interpretations of one single event. But actually, this event of a comet hitting the planet is another invention of the ego to see the fear as outside instead of facing the fear in the mind. And the fear is the ego belief itself. So that's why Jesus says, keep coming. You have to keep coming inside deeper and deeper. Keep coming toward me and take my hand, and we'll go past this ego. We'll go all the way. Okay. This is what happens when you give your mind over to the ego, to illusions. Then there's all kind of options that are presented. One thing they were going to try to do is go up and shoot the asteroid, shoot the comet, break it to pieces to save the Earth. And then, no, it has valuable minerals. It can bring the end to poverty. You see the spins. The ego absolutely will try to spin everything. It will spin relationships. It spins, takes on the environment. It spins possible outcomes that are forms of betterment, whether the beneficiary is wealth or it's personal power, or it's ending some kind of crisis like poverty or pollution. The ego is the spin doctor that is constantly spinning. And then we see Dr. Mindy saying, we are not in control anymore. Like he's part of his mind is trying to justify the new direction now, the new loyalty. And they're laughing, his two companions there. They're like, this is a bunch of BS. Underneath it all, it's very simple. Again, Jesus says, only the mind needs salvation, and it's only saved through peace. It's so simple. And if you want to go even underneath what that means, it's that God creates in spirit, God creates in pure love, and that's all that creation is. It's the extension of pure love. So the mind cannot create beyond itself. The mind actually is incapable of projecting in reality because it was created by God. The mind is incapable of manifesting. It's incapable of manifesting different forms because it's incapable of manifesting any form. Only creation can be extended. When you try to share an illusion, Jesus says you're trying to share nothing, which is just reinforcing the belief that you're nothing. If you try to share nothing, then you believe you are nothing. And that's what this whole world is. It's the attempt to share that which cannot be shared. Yeah, we believed that one time. We thought we could share bodies. We thought we could share bank accounts. We thought we could share houses and cars. We thought we could share a garden. We thought we could share a dinner. We actually thought we could share a conversation. We've not been able to share anything. And that's because everything has a purpose of forgiveness, which is release, is letting it go. So this movie is just showing, it's kind of like a farce that's showing all the attempts at jumping on another bandwagon, jumping on another spin. it seems like we go through the world and it's one spin after another. And always the spins are about false perception, and that they're equally false. It's not like some spins are better than other spins. That's the belief that we can be educated, we can be more educated. So when people sometimes tell me, you can't trust the media is deceiving us. Well, it's not the media that's the problem. It's a perceptual problem of seeing a fragmented world. And then when you project it onto the government, you project it onto the military, you project it on to the media, you project, this is what the ego is trying to do. It's trying to make up an external enemy in saying that the external world has the power to take your peace of mind away. And Jesus is saying, oh, no. You can control the direction of your thinking. You can either line up with the Holy Spirit or the ego, but it's your choice. Every single moment, you can align with the Spirit or with the ego. And in the end, that's how you transcend the ego, by joining with the Spirit over and over and over. And remember what Jesus told us. He told us about, he was telling us at the beginning, when I was reading from chapter 12, he told us about the what, salvation. He told us about the how, peace. He made the distinction that salvation is for the mind and it is attained through peace. And then he put an exclamation point at the end. He said, never lose sight of this, and never allow yourself to believe, even for an instant, that there is another answer, that there is a plan, that the military and the government can come up to destroy the oncoming comet. There is a plan that BASH technology, imagine now that they've just shifted to BASH cellular to save the planet. A cellular, a phone company now is the next plan to save the planet with these like robotic machines that will go down. Don't look to technology to save the day. Yes, some of you have smartphones. Yeah, don't look to your smartphone to bring salvation. Remember, the mind needs salvation, and it's only achieved through peace, not through technology, not through finances and money, not through innovation. I mean, that is a kind of an exciting word to the ego. Innovation. The ego likes innovations and genius inventions and new and improved government, new and improved relationships, new and improved communities, new and improved methodologies, new and improved technologies. No, 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 no. Jesus says, no means no. Do not go for the external solutions. Your mind is so powerful that you can choose to forgive. And the power of forgiveness is truly the word power of the mind. And nothing else will work. I like how Jesus tells us, he says, never lose sight of this, and never allow yourself to believe, even for an instant, that there is another answer. Forgiveness is the answer, and there is no other. Forgiveness is the only option that works, and there is no other. We don't need multiple options when we've been told the what and the how by Jesus Christ. By one who's transcended time and space, he seems to be in a position to know. So all we can do is we can say yes to that and give our total faith and trust in it, or we can play with the wheel of time and karma and keep spinning the roulette, the roulette of death, where every single option leads absolutely nowhere and brings no happiness and no joy. So here we go. We've just reached the point. Now we can see again, we're at the point of the movie where the main character, Kate, she just has this anger coming up. She's just starting to get really angry that nobody is taking anything seriously, that even attempted solutions are hijacked and misdirected, and she's out there at a restaurant bar with her buddies, and she cannot hold it in anymore. The only problem is when we feel like we're going to explode emotionally and we let those emotions up. Jesus tells us, you will look inside first, and then the world you see will reflect your emotional state. If you have hatred and anger and guilt in your mind, in your experience, you will see an angry, hateful, spiteful, fearful world. And if you find through forgiveness that you find peace is your state of mind, you will look upon a peaceful world. You will see a peaceful perception of a world because it's not external to what's going on in consciousness. It's not external to the mind. So we're about to see a scene where Kate, she exploded once on the Daily Rip, and now she's about ready to explode in this bar restaurant. And also, Dr. Milton, Randall it's building up too. He's been wavering back and forth, but the emotions are ready to come up. This is not a bad thing when the emotions come up. It's almost like a volcano that's got to blow. You know, you've got to let the emotions move through. You don't have to push them back down, or you don't have to disguise them, or you don't have to play games with them, but you do have to let them pass through, and then you have to be willing to see that you've been wrong about them, that you were just pursuing something, an agenda, a belief, an expectation, and that's what generated the emotions. So let's see how it goes here with Kate. She's like a volcano that's ready to blow. Okay, well, we all know that when we finally are presented with evidence, with something with the five senses, it seems to give something more validity. You know, we can perceive it. There's a cliche, I'll believe it when I see it. In other words, as long as it's abstract, then it's open to debate, but I'll believe it when I see it. There was a beautiful spiritual teacher named Wayne Dyer. He flipped it around. And he wrote a book, said, you'll see it when you believe it. Good old Wayne Dyer, he knew that it's in the mind. You don't perceive anything unless you first wished to see it. You have to want to believe in it. You have to want to see it before you can perceive it. You have to want to be separate from God, and you have to believe that you're separate from God before you can draw forth a witness in your perception to that separation. And Jesus is lining up with Wayne Dyer. He's saying, yeah, here, believe in forgiveness with me, and you'll see a happy dream. He's saying, our mind is so powerful that if I forgive, I will see a happy dream of non-judgment. He's already done it. He's already shown us the way. He's already put the evidence on the board, so to speak. He's already forgiven the world, and he saw the world differently. And now he's saying that's why he's got his Course in Miracles, to train our minds to see a different world. Now, this is a beautiful scene because now they look up and she sees the comet. She calls up Dr. Mindy. She calls up Randall and says, do you see it? He jumps out of his car. I see it. Now he's turning around. Do you see it? This is what we've been talking about. This is it. It's almost like the evidence is in. Now you can perceive the comet in the sky. But what does Jesus have to say about this? He's saying, no, no, no. Your body's eyes have never seen, ever. And your body's ears have never heard. It's a trick. God didn't create the body. God creates spirit. The ego made up the body. The ego made up the eyes and the ears and the nose and the taste and the touch. The ego made up the five senses. Everything the five senses show are a defense against spiritual vision, which would show you the light. So when people are so afraid of going blind, they're really afraid of the light. When people are afraid of going deaf, they're afraid of the light. I even showed this movie in our Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment called Perfect Sense. Yeah. In that movie, all five senses go. They're all gone. And still, there's an experience of love in the end, because love is not dependent on the five senses. Why would eternal love be dependent on five senses that are associated with a body that God did not create? Once again, these are the teachings of Jesus in A Course in Miracles. God did not create the body. God did not create the world. God did not create time and space. These are projections of the belief in separation. So Jesus is reminding us, you think you're afraid, in this case of the movie, of a giant comet hitting the planet and destroying life on Earth. But what you're really afraid of is the light. Why am I afraid of the light of love except if I'm identified with the ego, which is terrified of the light because it has a sense the light is above it. The light is greater than it. So we come back to a quote I read earlier from chapter 8. And again, I'll read this beautiful quote. It says, wholeness heals because it is of the mind. All forms of sickness, even unto death, are physical expressions of the fear of awakening. They are attempts to reinforce sleeping out of fear of waking. So this fits in with what I talked about at the beginning, that there's what's up, what up, man, what up, Jesus? Yeah, salvation. You're dreaming a dream that God did not create. You're dreaming a dream of separation. It's the ego that made up this dream. The answer is salvation. It's the correction in the mind. It's called the atonement. It's the first miracle, the last miracle, and all the miracles in between. In fact, there's a beautiful definition that Jesus gives of atonement. Jesus says, in the Course, he says, atonement might be equated with a total escape from the past and a total lack of interest in the future. Let's all join together in this. Can you feel it? The energy of being happy in the present moment. You know, if you're concerned about the future, throw caution to the wind, throw concerns and worries, cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. Trust the Holy Spirit to take you fully, 100% into the present moment, 100% into the holy instant. Worries about the future? Why? Why worry about hypotheticals? Regrets about the past? Why? Why have a regret about something that really didn't really happen ultimately? That's what we're being shown. total escape from the past and total lack of interest in the future. So right now, it appears that on Earth in the movie, people are starting to get really serious. Now, beyond all the talk shows, beyond all the bantering around social media and everything, now they're looking up and they're seeing this bright light in the sky. It's a comet coming to blast into the Earth. But remember, Jesus is telling us, no, you're just afraid of waking up. Only a body identification would generate fear. If you knew you were spirit, what would it matter if it was a solar flare, if it was a pandemic, a colossal pandemic, if it was a comet, a giant comet coming to smash into the ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and send a mile-high tidal wave? What would any of that matter to you if you knew that you were not a body? And think about it. Do you really think an eternal God would create you as a body? When God is eternal in spirit, why wouldn't God just create you as spirit? What if you are the I am presence before time was? What if you actually are the light and have always been the light? Would you be afraid, or could you enjoy the scene? There's even a beautiful section in the Manual for Teachers where Jesus is talking about the characteristics of a teacher of God. And one of the characteristics of a teacher of God is patience. And here's what he has to say about patience. Patience is natural to those who trust. No outcome already seen or yet to come can cause them fear. What perception, what situation on earth could cause fear when there is no cause for fear? Because God is the cause. God is the cause. God is the only cause. Wouldn't you rather be an effect of God instead of a projection of a tiny mad idea? That's your choice. You can take projection of tiny mad idea, flesh, or you can take perfect creation of eternal, unlimited God. Jesus said that in the Bible. He said, that which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the spirit is spirit. And then 2,000 years later in the Course in Miracles, Jesus says, you either perceive the flesh or recognize the spirit. You see, he's clarifying what he said 2,000 years ago. You either perceive the flesh or you recognize the spirit. And let's look at that word recognize. What does recognize mean? It means you've known it before. You don't recognize something until you've already known it before and you remember it. That's another good word for recognize. Remember. Remember the truth. Remember the light. So this is beautiful because we're seeing in this scene, this is a scenario of now they're seeing the comet in the night sky. And in one sense, they feel like, okay, I'm not crazy. There was a comet that I saw. And she saw it on her all of her powerful instruments, Kate did, and he charted it out. And they tried to speak about it, and not many people on the planet had the ears to hear. Does that sound familiar? It seems like we had a comet 2,000 years ago, a spiritual comet called Jesus Christ, who came and reflected and demonstrated that our kingdom is not of this world. We have a spiritual kingdom. We were created by a loving God, a spiritual God. And this world is the trick that tries to keep us from knowing who we are. So that's my setup here. Let's go and see where this movie's going to go. Let's remember the truth inside of us and not buy into the lie. It's getting really good. You can see, you have to make a choice. You have to follow, you have to follow your heart. It, as long as you keep looking to the world for answers, you will get conflicting witnesses. We have conflicting political parties, conflicting singers singing different things. And I think that's where Jesus comes in, and this is where the true turning to God comes in. I see Ian Helena, she's done all these albums for years. One song was called "That's Not the Reason Why." That's not the reason why. That's not the reason why. The trouble's not outside. You have to look inside. The problem's not out there. You have to look inside. We have been given inspired instructions from Jesus to go within into a state of non-judgment, which is our peace, which is our salvation, which is our joy and happiness. And that's the voice that we need to listen to. As much as the ego wants you to take a stand for or against somebody, for or against some position or situation, Jesus is saying, you don't have to do that, because the conflict isn't real. It's just believed in, and you don't have to believe it anymore. That's what forgiveness is. It simply looks and watches and waits and judges not. It simply beholds the symphony. If you want to be happy, you have to be the Lord of the dance. Why not watch the world as a dance? Enjoy all aspects of the dance by not judging it. But as soon as you try to take a side or stance, that's where you don't see the dance. You aren't in the dance. That's hell. You don't have to worry about flames, eternal flames. It's just judgment is hell, and forgiveness is a happy dream. So here we go. Now we're starting to see when it gets more intense. Now people are starting to really make a decision, and this is the mind making the decision. A decision to forgive. We see that that now they're both going out. Kate and Randall are both going out and sharing. This is what's happening, but we still know that, like with Randall, he tried to go back to his hometown in Michigan, but his wife wouldn't see him. But this is what we think of whenever we start to think of the end. We always think of forgiveness. Is there somebody that I need to tell them I love them? Is there somebody that I need to say, I'm so grateful for you in my life? Is there somebody in the last seconds, if you just knew it was the end of your earth perception, your earth experience, why not go leave it behind in love? Tell the ones that you love them. James Taylor wrote a beautiful song years ago, and I just love that song. It's called Shower the People. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out better if you only will. And it's so beautiful because it comes back to what's important. It's all about the love. It's always been all about the love. It was never about anything else. How could we have even been so foolish to be tricked to think that we had to bicker and argue and be against someone, and that we had to try to confront somebody? There's no one to confront. We're simply facing the fear that we believed in. Our fear of awakening is the thing we're confronting. That's what we're confronting. We're not confronting people. We're not confronting governments. We're not confronting the military. we're confronting our own ego belief in separation. And I say, let's go right at it. We don't have to be afraid of the ego. Who's afraid of this tiny mad idea when you start to see it's nothing? It can't stop you. It can't hold you back. The love is too great. The love is too strong. So here we go. We're going to see some forgiveness scenes coming up too on our screen now. That's what to do if you have a comet that's coming to your planet. They call it a planet killer comet. That really is turning up the need for forgiveness. And it's self-forgiveness. It's not forgiving anything outside of ourselves. It's salvation in the mind. The last attempt from the Earthlings to destroy the comet. And you notice the scenes are going back and forth. One scene is they're all ready for the big bash launch that will send up the drones and break the comet into all these little bits and pieces so that they can get all this money and prosperity. And then you see that the president is saying, I really liked how do you do that, tea leaf? You really scared him when you told him how he was going to die and the day he was going to die and everything. She said, I want to know. I want to know. I don't. Yes, I do. Tell me. And basically he did. He said, you're going to die you're going to be eaten by a Bronte ray. And he said, we don't really know what that means, but they never are wrong, that their algorithms can predict now a death. So here's our little scientist guy, wealthy scientist guy, predicting her death, eaten by a Bronte ray. And meanwhile, they're getting all set to fire all these rockets. And then if we look at Kate and we look at Randall, they're grocery shopping. So there's this big launch to save the planet. There's this forecast that the president's going to be eaten by a Bronte ray, and they're grocery shopping, and he's excited about the wild salmon in the aisle of the grocery store. This is starting to show us, make this year different by making it all the same. It's all the same. Whether it's dying in the future by being eaten by a Bronte ray, whether it's firing up your missiles to save the planet Earth, or shopping for your wild salmon in the aisle 3 of your grocery store, it's all the same. Why? Because everything is for forgiveness. Everything is for forgiveness. There are no hierarchies of illusions. There aren't any hierarchies of situations. Some situations are not better than other situations. Why? Because remember who made this world? It was the ego. The ego projected out a world of images, and then it made a hierarchy of images. It ordered the images, thus denying that they were images, that they were all equally false. How can you have a hierarchy of illusions? The meaning of illusion is not real. How can you have a hierarchy of not real? It would be like telling your friend, thank you for cooking me this meal. This is the best illusion that I've ever eaten. Yeah, you can't eat an illusion because illusion means not real. Remember, our workbook lesson for today is lesson number 1 in A Course in Miracles. Nothing I see means anything. And it's literally true. It's not kind of true. I remember in the early years when I was going through some of the early workbook lessons, I went down to a little hermitage in the woods of Kentucky, and I had a friend with me who was just starting the workbook lessons. And I said, great. Yeah, we'll do the lessons together. So we were down in the woods by ourselves in Kentucky, and she did the first lesson, and she just had this look on her face. She said, this is horrible. do you know what this lesson is saying? I said, yeah, nothing I see means anything. She said, that's terrible. So then she did the second lesson, and the third one, fourth one, fifth one. Finally, we got up to like 8 or 9 lessons. She said, is it going to get any better? This is like this is the preschool, right? This is the preliminary. He's not really serious. He's not really serious with these lessons. He's just playing around, right? It's got to get better. When's the good stuff going to come? And she had this look on her face. Like, when does it get better? It gets better when we embrace it. All we have to do is embrace one lesson entirely. And that's what I said. No, you just have to embrace any lesson. Pick a lesson. You don't have to make a commentary on the lessons. Now, when Jesus says the world will end in joy because it was a place of sorrow, when Jesus tells us the world will end in laughter because it was a place of tears, that's coming from an awakened mind. Only an awakened mind can say that. The world will end in laughter because it was a place of tears. That's Jesus for you. That's Jesus giving it to you straight. He's giving it to your heart. I mean directly, direct shot to the heart. Because he's saying, are you with me? Are you with me? Join with me, join with the Holy Spirit in the gentle laughter that simply sees illusions for illusions. That's what forgiveness is. It just sees the false as false. It's not any complicated thing at all. It's just that. So here we are in this movie now. It's getting quite comical because they're shopping for groceries while Bash and Janie, President Janie, are firing off, and her son, played by Jonah Hill, he's praying for stuff. He's praying for all the stuff that could be lost. That's too good, praying for the stuff that could be gone. So we're seeing that this is Jesus just humorously saying, please just see that it's all the same. Make this year different. In 2022, make this the year that you see it all the same and you love it all because of who you are, who created you. That's where the joy is. And that's what the Course in Miracles is really about. It's just giving it to you straight. So here we go. I love these scenes. Let's see how the final attempt from the humans, the Bash attempt it's a cell phone company, is trying to save the world for some increased profits and prosperity for all. More minerals, better cell phone connections, less drop calls. There you go. It's that versus the comet. Let's see how it goes. So she stepped out to the bathroom, the baño, and to get onto the escape ship, and she forgot her son. Meanwhile, he's back there with his family going through their connecting forgiveness scene. That's what it's all about. Even the people, when the launch and the destruction of the comet failed, they said, I have a 20-year-old son, I've got to go. I got to go see my husband. Everybody took off. But he's saying, no, I'm good. As she's describing this escape hatch for the 2,000 that are in charge of the failed Bash launch. So the Bash group is still planning to escape now. But, Jesus tells us that true forgiveness, everyone's included in our forgiveness. No one is left behind. Everything is love. It's a retranslation of the world from a world of division and separation egoically to a world of unification. The mind is whole. The mind is complete. The mind has always been whole. The mind has always been complete. That's what the wake-up is. The wake-up is healed perception, unified perception. forgiven perception. So we're seeing, again, this is the ego's option. If all else fails, the ego says, just put your tail between your legs and get out. Get out. Go to a habitable place in the cosmos where you can maintain civilization. And there have been quite a few movies, even in the movie Knowing, the two children seem to be taken off to another planet. So here we go. We're ready for the conclusion. Okay, we had the final scene. The script is written. The Bronterak, the forecasted Bronterak attack was there, thus confirming the script is written. So, we're left with the practice and the devotion. What a beautiful movie to see on January 1st, and your first day of a new year practicing A Course in Miracles lessons. See, that's why we never know what we're in for. But I think that movie could save us thousands of years in the time sense. If we really do come back to the simplicity of the what is the salvation and the how is peace. Even when you have a leak in your toilet, remember the what is salvation of the mind, and the means of attaining it is peace. It doesn't matter whether your car won't start, whether you're covered in your yard is covered in snow and the windshields are all frosty. It doesn't matter who seems to be born, who seems to be dying. It doesn't matter all the political fluctuations. Is Bitcoin going up or down? The cryptocurrencies, all the things and the patterns, the weaving patterns of the world. It's kind of like a stock market analyst following the stock market. Well, the Dow Jones average is up today and the poorest standard is down. You start to realize that the whole point of forgiveness is to let your perception of the world be transformed. So that's why Jesus says, seek not to change the world, seek rather to change your mind about the world, because a change of mind, a change of purpose is an actual significant change. That's what atonement is about, accepting the correction. It's not like we have to generate the correction. We don't have to generate it. It's already there. We just have to accept it. So that's why in the end, it's all about acceptance. That's why Jesus says, let all things be exactly as they are. It's about a shift in perspective where all things are equally acceptable. That goes against the programming. The programming is trying to teach us that things are different. There's such a thing as better and worse. There's such a thing as more and less. But there's not. So I hope you enjoyed it. I actually felt that this movie really had a lot of comedy. It's kind of a nice mix to bring up emotions, but you can see whoever made this movie there was a divine hand in it, because it was for our assistance to free our mind from the past and to enter into the moment. So thank you all. Thank you for sharing New Year's Day. I send all my love. I send all my joy. I send all my happiness to you, and I join you in that. So thank you, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.